So, we're going to talk about pedigrees. Okay, so a few of the symbols, well, quite a few of the symbols that we're actually going to talk about. All right, let me move the mouse. There we go. All right, so, good Lord, I can't spell. Is it S-I-M symbol? No. Normally, I'm much better at making sure I can spell things, but I feel like the whole, like, you know, computer stuff is making my brain turn to mush. All right, so square is male. Circle is female. All right, if you want to remember it, think a pregnant woman's belly makes her kind of round. All right, so the female is shown as a circle. All right, someone with the trait is shaded in. All right, if you have a circle that is half shaded in, then that is a carrier female. All right. If we see a male that is shaded in, then he is a carrier for a non-X-linked disorder. All right, so remember, the males cannot be carriers for an X-linked disorder because he only has one X chromosome. So he would either have it or not. All right. Connected there is marriage. This is children. All right. This is twins. And, yeah, I don't, sometimes if there's a double line connecting, that means that they are related. AKA incest. As you saw in some of our examples. All right, so here are the symbols that we will use. All right. Note to self, it's going to bleed through. All right, so I'm going to real quick draw a pedigree. All right, so you always start, you know, female and male. And let's make this a big one. So we'll do another set over here. Okay, so this is generation 1. Yeah, I will go back at the very end so you can take a picture because I'm recording this on my phone. All right, and these guys have son, daughter. Okay, this is generation 2. right. And there we go. And this is generation 3. All right, so yeah, not the prettiest. All right, so let's say we're looking at, what's a good one? Let's do albinism. All right, so albinism. So let's see here. Okay, albino. Okay. So we can see here that there's only 3 people that have albinism. All right, so when you have an instance of 2 people who are not shaded in, have a child who is shaded in, that is a recessive trait. All right, we refer to this as skipping a generation. So it did not show up in this parent's generation, but it showed up here. Did not show up in this parent's generation, but it showed up here. And same on this end. All right, so we see that there is 1 male and 2 females. So this is recessive autosomal. So that means it is not X-linked. All right, so here, if we number these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we can name the people, but that's not going to be on your test, so I'm not going to include that. All right, so how is it then that person 2-2 is albino when their parents are not? So if we go through, we can figure out the genotype of the people who are, of the shaded in people who are albino. So we can do that because we know this is a recessive trait. The only time recessive traits are expressed is when they are homozygous recessive. All right, so using the letter lowercase a for having for being albino. All right, we can go to all the shaded people and know that their genotype is homozygous recessive. Okay, so we have little a, oh dear. And we're back. So, little a, little a. All right, now let's figure out how these shaded in people came to be from people who don't have the trait. So if we remember that you always get 1 letter from mom and 1 from dad, that's helpful. Before we do that, in order to not be albino, each person who is not shaded in should have at least 1 capital A. And some of these guys we might not be able to figure out with 100% accuracy what their genotype is. Just remember, they have at least 1 capital A. So if we want to figure out the genotypes for parents 1-1 and 1-2, we already know they have at least 1 capital A. we know that their son here is albino. He had to get one lowercase letter from mom and one from dad. They did not pass on their capital A's, so that means that their other letter in their genotype is a lowercase a. So they are heterozygous. That is how we can have a recessive trait here come from parents that do not express the trait, because both parents are heterozygous. All right, same thing over here. One letter from mom, one letter from dad. And over here, one letter from mom, one letter from dad. So for the most part, I'm not going to worry about the ones we can't fill in for sure. So any one of these other people here could either be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. There is no real way to tell. We can give our best guess, but unfortunately with pedigree, sometimes you just don't find the genotypes. All right, so if we have an instance where there are a lot more males than females, typically that means it is an X-linked trait. So that is found on the X chromosome. Now, if you are trying to find a dominant trait, you would see parents that are shaded in. They could either have a child who is shaded in as well, or they could have a child who's not. All right, this is because for a dominant trait, you can either be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. So shaded in for dominant trait, if these parents are heterozygous, then they can have a child who is showing the dominant trait, and they can also have a child who is recessive. So with the dominant trait, it does not skip generations. You will have two shaded in parents that can have a non-shaded in child, whereas we have the reverse up here. Two non-shaded parents will have a shaded in child for a recessive. So that's just kind of a quick overview of your pedigree charts. And honestly, that's about all you need to know about pedigrees for your exam.